All right, it's time to get some more work done on the old FUMMINS build. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this project, we'll do a quick recap. So I bought this 2009 Ford F350 crew cab four-wheel drive dually. So I got this thing really cheap because I bought it already blown up. The motors that were in this generation were notorious for blowing up, these 6.4 power stroke diesel. I also bought a 2005 Dodge Cummins parts truck from auction and yanked the common rail Cummins out of it. So a lot of people so far have seemed a little bit confused. Basically, this is not a 12 valve. This is a newer Cummins engine. So instead of having all mechanical injection, it has electrical injection. It's got the injection pump, a common rail, and then basically electronically controlled injectors instead of it all being mechanical. So there's pros and cons to both. The 12 valve is a lot simpler. You only essentially need one wire to run it. It's all mechanical, very rudimentary, and that way it's a good and a bad thing. For me, I like this engine better because it's much more modern. It runs quieter, it's more efficient, it makes more power easily. It's a better fit for me for a newer chassis like this. This is gonna be a tow rig. This isn't just a weekend toy, I want this thing to be as reliable as possible and efficient as possible, quiet, comfortable, modern, really is the goal. So basically, the reason for doing this is the Ford engine sucked, but the transmissions were really good and the chassis are really nice. The interior is really nice, the chassis parts, everything. The Dodges, the transmissions were absolute garbage. The chassis weren't very good either, but the engine was great. So we take the great engine, put it in the great chassis, kind of same generation. It's almost like this could have rolled off the showroom floor like this if Ford had partnered up with Cummins instead of International. So basically the goal is to build the ultimate truck, the ultimate diesel tow rig, simple, efficient, reliable, very easy to work on, inline six Cummins engine, and the good Ford chassis with the good Ford trans. So we have done a lot so far, stripped both trucks down. We got this engine refreshed, head gasket, head stud, gasket seals, all that. We got it mated to the transmission. We had to move everything 3 inches back. So we have the drive shaft at the drive shaft shop getting shortened. Got all our accessories on. We're using a Ford power steering pump, a Ford alternator, and a Dodge AC compressor, built-in exhaust. And basically we're on the final stretch of everything we need to do while the cab's off. We did shocks, we've got the rest of our steering components coming in today. So basically I'm trying to get everything done that's gonna be any bit easier with the cab off. Then we'll drop the cab back down, bolt it up for the final time, and then we can start working on stuff like the cooling system, the intercooler, the radiator, AC lines, things like that. So the last big cab off project is the fuel system. So the Fords require like 45 PSI of operating pressure from the lift pump. The Dodge it's like down at 15. So you can't run the Ford factory lift pump. It's never a bad idea to go to an aftermarket lift pump anyway. So I got this fast lift pump set up. I went to Diesel Power Products for this. I was a little conflicted on how I wanted to do this because basically I need it to fit in the Ford correctly, but I need it to be the pressure for the Dodge. So they came up with a good solution. So we got the fast lift pump for a Dodge. So it'll be the correct pressure. To make it work more easily with the Ford, we have this BD sump kit. So instead of relying on the lift pump to pull the fuel all the way up through the top, through the factory sender, up, over, and out, we're gonna be taking it from the bottom. So we're gonna drill a hole, this is gonna bolt up to the bottom, and we're gonna get our fuel directly from the bottom of the tank. So the confusing thing, or not the confusing thing, but the one thing that I will have to figure out is a return line from here. I plugged in the Ford one just to see, but it's super loose on there. It's not the right, where the barb is and yada yada. So I need to figure out a fitting that'll go on here that I can convert to a hose barb, and then I can just run a rubber hose back and go into that fitting and into the tank. So that's kind of my plan. I guess I could potentially go into the stock return. I got to take a look at it when I get it off. But, we need to remove all this because this line comes down here, and this is the fuel filter housing for the Ford, which we're not going to be using this. We need to delete this. These are the factory Ford lines, which we need to delete. So it's just a little bit complicated. Really, the only thing that we have to figure out is the return. Boy, did we just get lucky. So I got these D-Torx fittings a long time ago. I ordered the wrong ones for my ethanol content sensor for my Miata. So I didn't use them. I had them sitting around the exact right size for this push lock fitting here. So now we've got a 6A in here, which that's super easy. We can go from 6A in to pretty much any hose size we need. So sweet. I'm going to tighten that down and that is sorted. So that makes life so much easier. So much easier. So I'm not 100% sure what size return line I'll run. Either I'll run the bulkhead fitting or again, I'll go into the stock return. I got to see what that looks like and what we have for that. I'm not going to get too ahead of myself, but that makes life way easier. Shout out to D-Torx, always saving the day. Okay, let's get this tank out. I've been dreading it. All right, got the Fuel filler neck stuff disconnected. Yeah, okay, so this is the nice thing about doing YouTube. You can find information on yourself. So I looked up the video when I first got this truck, and I was like, maybe I show the fuel gauge in there somewhere. I can see how much fuel's in the tank. 3/4 of a tank. 3/4 of a tank. So 22, 24 gallons. Of course. Oh, and obviously we're not going to use this diesel. I'm not going to use however many year old diesel in a new truck with new fuel system and all that. So anyway, basically we got to drain the tank. All right, well, in trying to do this a different way, we're now doing it this way. That's one way to do it. At least getting her back up in there shouldn't be too bad, because she'll be about 200 pounds lighter without about 24 gallons of fuel. Check and see if the fitting on it, I think it's gonna be too small. I think I need a 3/8 fitting for this, and then I can use the stock return. This is weird, it's 2 wire. Or is it 3? No, it's only 2 wire. Let's get this cap off. Oh, I see. Okay, so there is no lift pump in here. It's just the fuel level sensor, the feed, suction, and the return. So that makes things easy. We can use this line as our return. Cool. All right, luckily I saved my fuel pump in a jar. So we made this janky setup out of, with like an aftermarket fuel pump in this jar. And we did this experiment Miata where we made a Miata run on Everclear, moonshine, denatured alcohol, acetone, like all sorts of stuff. And we'd put it in the jar and then run it off of this fuel pump. So anyway, that was a lot of fun, but we still got this. It's already easily wired up. So we'll drop it in there and start pumping this out in a gas can, and we can get to work. All right, so here's the setup. We've got a relay, a fuse. We've got constant power to the fuse, ground to the fuse, ground to the pump, power probe, and then we've got a switch. Boom. We've already got one of them filled up. She's ripping. Man, this is gonna take a while. Alrighty, we got the tank pretty much completely drained. You can kind of see in here. Let's get you down in there. Can you see? There's like some random stuff down there. You can see like that screen. Obviously there's the pump itself, but there's like bits of plastic, another like check valve looking thing. But all we've got is a tiny little puddle left that the pump could suck up. There was a lot of fuel in there, man. There was a lot of fuel. We got 1, 2, 3, 5 gallons. Plus like a gallon or so in there, plus I dumped 3 5-gallons into the truck. Obviously there's probably half a gallon or so left in each one because you can't get it all out. But I mean, I probably put 12, 13 gallons in the truck, and yeah, and then we have 15 left, 16. So that was a little rough, but we got it done. That's all that matters. Tank is empty. I'm gonna pull that crap out. We're gonna put the top back on it, and I'm gonna pressure wash it because it is obviously quite dirty. So we'll clean it up, make it all nice and shiny and new, and not get covered in dirt every time we touch it. So this is what came out of the tank. All this broken plastic was just sitting down there in the bottom of the tank. Kinda interesting. And then there was a screen. Couldn't really figure out where that would go. I don't know. Very strange. Fortunately for us, since we're doing this with the cab off, we're gonna remove our factory fuel lines. Now I wanted to try to retain this at least for the return, but it goes into the lift pump fuel filter assembly here. So we'd have to get like a quick connect adapter and then whatever. So we're just gonna run a push lock and all the way back. So we're gonna delete this fuel filter lift pump deal, delete these lines, and then I'm gonna try to reuse these brackets. I should be able for sure to use them for the return line. Feed line, they might pinch it too much. Anyway, we're gonna pull them out. We're gonna try to not destroy them in case we do end up deciding to use them. But for now, we're gonna get them out of our way, and that'll be really nice. We'll get rid of a lot of this mess down here, and it'll make this thing easier to work on. The more stuff we can get rid of that we're not going to use, the easier everything will be to work on. So sweet, let's get to it, start yanking lines out.
This is the first one that I've come across that didn't have a drain on it. The 99 did not have drain.
Wow, I jinxed myself. I was about to say how these Ford quick connects are the easiest ones I've ever disconnected, but oh, so it wasn't bad. Yeah, no, really not bad. Granted, this is a newer vehicle. I need to keep track of this because this is what our lift pump's gonna plug into. So I did have to order the Ford specific harness, so it'll be plug and play, because the one I have, since the pump's for a Dodge, is for a Dodge tank and lift pump and stuff. So we ordered one for the Ford so we can just plug and play it. No cutting and splicing and doing anything like that. Oh, easy peasy. So basically what we should have going to this, we should have a feed, a return back to the tank, and an out to the engine. The difficulty and what took me a bit to figure out was the fact that we also need a return from the engine. So we have two returns, which is why I got the sump kit, so I could use the bulkhead for the feed as the return. But now we can use the factory return with a quick connect fitting to AN, and then we can have a bulkhead for the feed and return. So moral of the story is I want to mount these in the fuel hat. I think it'll be the best location for them. It'll be removable and it'll be through metal instead of plastic, and we know for sure there's clearance here, but I want to double check that. So what I want to do now is I want to put the tank back in, bolt it up loosely, clarify where I want to put these fittings for the feed and return to the lift pump, and then we can pull the tank out and mount these. All right, well, this is why we check things. The bed rail lands essentially right in the middle of the fuel hat. So I went ahead and marked it with a Sharpie. So either we'll still go into the fuel hat, or we might have to just go into the tank itself. We got plenty of room right here on the tank. So we'll pull it back out and then kind of come up with a game plan there. So you can see where our line is. We do not have a lot of real estate to work with here. My one thought, we are gonna be, again, retaining the stock return here. My one thought is if I cut this off, cut the tube off from the bottom, drill the hole out, I can put at least the feed here where this is, and then put the return, you know, maybe like right here or right here. I don't know, let's pull this back out and see what it looks like. Beautiful. So this is going to be our return. So we do want to make sure that this is submerged as much as possible. I'm basically just going to run it down to where the factory return is. We're going to do the sump, and we're going to put the return here. So we'll have return from the engine, return from the pump, feed to the pump from the bottom. So I want to get this fitting all set up in here and test fit this. Bing, bada, boom, return, return. Oh, well, we still got to do the hose here. Well, I went ahead and put the tank back in to ensure that it would fit with the little guard deal, and we're good because there's a skid plate that goes over this. I want to put some rubber between that and this, but anyway, it'll fit, so that's what's important. Want to know return, ladies and gents, boys and girls. We'll do this next part with it on its side so we can limit the amount of crap that gets in there.
There it is.
Sweet, thank you. Oh, this is just thick. It's thicker than I thought it was. It says 2 revolutions to torque, but man, that's a lot. Got that in, we got our O-ring in, we need to lube our O-ring, install our screen. Beautiful. All right, let's get this bad boy on. This is gonna be a little tricky. I'm hoping I can reach all the way through from this side. Oh, I think we're good. I know, just need to actually tighten her down. We might have to adjust where this comes out. I figured I could do middle, and then we could kind of come out here, and then the lift pump should be right around here. All right, the tank's all finished up, ready to go. I've got my fittings both plugged just to be safe so we don't get any contaminants in there. So we're gonna throw the tank back in, and we'll start assembling the pump stuff, and then we can mount the pump and then start running our line. All right, cool. Tank's bolted back in. We'll have to check our plate here, but I want to start doing everything else first, like mounting the pump, doing the lines to the pump, from the pump, etc. All right, so we need to get all of our fittings locked down. I'm gonna have this one pointing like this when it's done because the feed will come from the bottom of the tank. Maybe I'll angle it down slightly. We can always change it. I just like to get them tight in their spot and leave them. Now we need to install our filtros. Put a little motor oil on the O-rings. All right, cool. Now we got that all assembled. We need to start figuring out our bracket. I think I'm gonna have to mount this differently. So again, struggles of putting a Dodge one in a Ford. So it has like a bolt that bolts to the bed rail area. And yeah, we don't have any exposed bolts like that. Sandy's just out here supervising, right, Sands? Oh, there's a lizard. No, leave a lizard alone, Sandy. Nope, leave a lizard alone. No lizards for you. To the very front bed rail, so that should bring the pump back a little bit just under the bed. So for the Ford kit, I looked up the Ford instructions. I've been kind of going off the Dodge instructions this whole time because this is for a Dodge. The bracketry is the same. They use the same bolt, but they have a little piece that you slide into the bed rail, and there's an existing hole there, and then you bolt into that. So it's like a strip of metal with a nut on it welded to it. So I think I'm gonna try to make that real quick. I think that'll be a better way to do it than rib nuts. Obviously this thing's pretty heavy and it's not something you want falling off. So I'm gonna see if I have a nut for this, start cutting metal, make something work. So I would definitely MIG this, but I just remembered I'm out of C25 for my MIG. I do have argon though, so this is a lock nut, so I'll have to really prove it. All right, cleaned off the coating. You do not want to breathe in burning zinc coating. Very bad for you. Not like that. Well, we don't need that much. The only reason I did more than just, oh, come on, get off there. The only reason I did more than just a tack was because this is a lock nut. So like when you're holding it with a wrench, man, it's fighting you because it's meant to obviously lock on. You can see how it clears the zinc coating off the threads as soon as you run through it once. It's like, it almost feels like you're cross-threading it. So it definitely needed to have some good support. Otherwise it'd just spin. I'm gonna pull this bolt out, go paint this, and then we'll try to install it and hope our measurements are correct. All right, well, that little welded nut plate deal worked out perfect. I mean, that's basically exactly what they supply with this kit, but yeah, we got that bracket mounted up. Now we can mount our pump and bracket to this bracket, start running our lines. Oh, also some people asked in the last video, yes, this is rust. Unfortunately, bed liners cause rust. There's no rust on this truck. It was a Florida truck its whole life, but water collects under the bed liner down here at the front, and you get some rusty rust, which obviously it's not bad, just a shame because this was a rust-free truck, but it has a really rusty area compared to the rest of it. All right, let's get this pump on. She's in. We're gonna do our feed line first, route it all the way up, get our fitting in the injection pump, get it fully sorted, fully installed in the truck. That way, we're much better running out, you know, like ending up with, let's say 2 feet left and needing 3 feet, than ending up with like 12 feet left and needing 13 feet. You'd have to get way more. So I always try to do the longest run first, just for that reason. So this stuff, if you don't know what push lock is, it's got these like really aggressive double barb fittings. You don't use any hose clamps or anything. This stuff's rated to like 300 PSI. You just push it on and it locks on. However, getting it off, you pretty much, the only way I can really do it easily is just cut it and then cut a slit down the middle, pull it off, start over. So I always try to make them, you know, like 6 or so inches long. That way, if I do ever need to change something, you know, I have enough length left over to keep that same run. So anyway, let's get to it. Also not gonna push it on all the way just yet in case I change my mind on routing. So I'm drilling out, these are solid all the way through, so I'm drilling them out so that I can run a zip tie through them. We gotta pull this feed line off. This is the factory feed line, put our fitting in here, and then we'll zip tie it here and go right into that fitting. Bada boom, feed line done. Okay, feed and return lines are done, and this is all we have left. That is why we did the feed first. So I've got other hose that came with this BD sump kit, so I'll have enough hose to do it, but that's why I wanted to make sure we had the feed line done, because otherwise we'd end up with like 10 feet left over that we couldn't use. All right, we got our feed line on from the bottom of the tank. What I need to do now is put the skid plate on. I'm pretty sure it's gonna hit here. We're gonna need to put some rubber there, and then we can figure out, once that's on, the nicest way with the least interference to route this line, because we want to, you know, prevent it from rubbing metal on metal if we can. Sick, we actually have clearance. So our sump, you can see how our line routing works out. There's like a flange here, so we'll just loop it through here. All right, well, our fuel system is almost done. One thing we need to do is our return line. So we have our fitting conversion here. I've got push lock fittings coming for this. I have push lock hose, so we'll run hose back up to there. I should be able to get the fittings that I need to get on without completely dropping the tank, but we do have to put a plastic cover back over here, so we'll have to like kind of halfway drop the tank anyway. And that's why I'm kind of waiting to hook up these last hoses in case I need to drop it down. I did give myself room so I can drop the tank down, you know, probably a good foot or so without maxing out the lines. That way, you know, if I want to take it off from the top or the bottom, you know, whatever, make it serviceable. One thing I do want to change though is these are all push lock, like I said. So this fitting's push lock, but the fitting for our sump, I don't know if you can see it, is a normal barb, so I had to use a hose clamp, and you can see the hose clamp is touching this skid plate, and plus I just would prefer not to use that. I'd rather it be push lock, so to do that I had to get really this. So 3/8 MPT, the JIC to 1/2 inch push lock. So then we'll be able to put a push lock on our sump deal and delete that hose clamp. We shouldn't have any clearance issues, shouldn't have anything touching, and then we'll be push lock all the way through. So that'll be really nice. But anyway, mostly done at least. Another big box ticked off the list, full fuel system essentially done. So next order of business, I want to do the steering components. So we got what I believe to be the right steering components this time. If you saw last video, I ordered a bunch of steering components and they ended up being for a wide track axle. We have those in to get the steering system put back together with all our new parts. And then once that's done, we can make sure that it's straight and we're still kind of lined up. And I want to push this thing out and pressure wash the grease and grime off the chassis, because we've only got like 1 or 2 little projects left after the fuel system before we drop the cab back down permanently. So I want to get this done now, so it's nice and as clean as it can be. It's going to get dirty again, but it'll be nice to have it freshened up some. So yeah, let's dive into the steering system. Really should be relatively straightforward. We got halfway through it last time. So we've got a new drag link, new upper tie rod end, and then we have new outer tie rods on both ends and a new Bilstein steering damper. So basically everything's new except for the center links. So should be a lot better. One of those things, you know, again, I want this truck to last me a long time, so might as well take care of it and replace this stuff while we're here, so we don't have to do it, you know, shortly down the road. Start with the drag link. Let's get this assembled, put in. We have our measurements so we can get it close to where it was. Throw it in the truck. What, Sandy? You don't like your camera shy, Sands? Yeah. Okay, fine. All right, last piece of the puzzle. Steering damper. Bada boom! All new steering components. Ah, it's so nice to see fresh parts go on a build, even if it is something as boring as steering components. You just knowing that it's going to be solid makes me happy. So anyway, I gotta tighten all this stuff down. Again, we will definitely have to get an alignment. It looks close enough to get us to an alignment place once this thing's running and driving. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten all this stuff down. Yeah. And it's weird seeing this thing outside in the sunlight. It's an odd feeling. Especially with no cab on it. It just makes it feel, you know, with the cab over it, it doesn't feel as weird as no cab in sight. So anyway, we're out here. Now that we have steering, we're able to push it out without it being too much of a struggle. So I'm gonna start pressure washing it. Should be quite satisfying. All right, well, we got this thing cleaned up pretty decently. Obviously, we didn't go crazy and scrub it and whatever. I just wanted to get the surface dirt off of it. That way it's clean to the touch, more or less. It's not gonna be perfectly clean, but looks a lot better. So we're gonna let this thing sit here and dry before we push it back inside and call it a night. So for now, that is gonna be it for this video. Next video, we have a couple more little projects to do. The coolant bypass, the fuel injection control module, fuel return line, very short, quick projects, and then we'll be putting the cab back on for the final time and moving on to the last bit, the last stretch, cooling system, AC lines, things like that. So super exciting. We're getting very close. We might fire it up next video. It might be the video after, but very soon we'll fire it up, and hopefully shortly after we will drive it. So I hope to see you guys for those, but for now, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. Goodbye.